Hello, everyone. Uh, so this is a lot later than it should be, given that I wanted to do this as soon as I beat the game, but it ended up taking me 3 months to beat Tears of the Kingdom because I was put off and I played this and Breath of the Wild back to back. But anyway, you might remember, like a year and a half ago, me, Lid, and Eli. Lid and Eli, introduce yourself. Lid first.
Hello.
Now you, Eli.
Where's Morshu? Why isn't he in this game?
Yeah, we did a Kirby and the Forgotten Land spoiler cast, and we
Yes, it's
figured,
once again time for Andy to give Nintendo their annual checkup.
uh, we could have done more recent ones, but we kind of put it off. There weren't games that all three of us were playing. We could have done Pizza Tower, but I took way too long finishing that game. So we're doing Tears of the Kingdom. Hope,
Yeah, I like how you say that as if you didn't take way too long to finish Tears of the Kingdom.
yes, but okay. In my defense, Pizza Tower is like a 6 hour game. This is 106 hour game. So it's at least
No,
a
I understand. I'm just saying I would have done Pizza Tower if you'd asked me, but it's fine.
Yeah. And we're probably also gonna do Mario Wonder in the fall, maybe around like Thanksgiving, given how long it takes me to finish games. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Today we're trying to talk about, as of today, the most recent entry in the Legend of Zelda series. What we thoughts and our thoughts on it. We and yeah, I guess we'll start off with the conversation of how we felt about Breath of the Wild and how we thought Tears of the Kingdom changed. How we feel like the changes Tears of the Kingdom made were. Oh, did I? Lid, would you like to go first on this?
Breath of the Wild is you know, it's a pretty good open world game, I guess, but as a Zelda game, it's just kind of whatever. Like it doesn't have much in the way of memorable characters or story. The world is the most plain that it's ever been, pretty much, and it doesn't really have the structured level design that you would expect. It's just kind of a big bowl of oatmeal. Tears of the Kingdom keeps a lot of the same basic aspects, but it definitely improves a lot. The sheer scope and density is ridiculous. Um, it definitely tries a bit better to introduce some structure and story. It definitely feels like it has more stakes. There's more to like learn about the world, but I do still think that as as far as the like typical Zelda tropes go, it's somewhat weak. But it makes up for this by being just mechanically all over the place
Yeah.
and introducing way more ideas than I
I'll be
would
right back.
expect from current Nintendo.
Hold on, I will be right back.
We've lost our host.
I wanted to record in the chair I usually stream in, but that chair makes too much noise, so I'm switching to the quieter one. Anyway, Eli, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I think my general thoughts are pretty similar to Lid's, so I don't want to repeat, every single point. But I mean, I liked Breath of the Wild pretty much the same as Lid when maybe a little bit more, but I think at the time of its release, Breath of the Wild is probably the open world game that I enjoyed the most. Um, but it does fall flat compared to other Zeldas. I would say that, with the exception of Skyward Sword, I prefer every prior 3D Zelda to this new direction it's taking. But I don't want to dwell too much on that because I feel like there's only so much I can say criticizing for it for what it isn't, and I'd rather focus on what it actually is doing. And I think, uh, in terms of Tears of the Kingdom, there's basically no reason for me to ever go back to Breath of the Wild now. This is a very marked improvement in basically every way that I could ask for, in while still being recognizably this new type of 3D Zelda, which is maybe not my very favorite thing, but I can live with, with what they're going with because there's a lot of cool stuff in this game. There's interesting main scenarios, maybe some issues with the story we'll get into later, but like the main scenarios I think are pretty well done. And the stuff that this game does with physics is insane that it's running on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a basic overview.
So, I'm going to start out by pointing out that I played both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom for the first time this year. I started playing Breath of the Wild in February to prep for Tears of the Kingdom, which I wasn't sure how good of an idea it was, given, like, oh man, I get to eat two 80-hour plus open world games back to back. But I'm kind of glad I did. It gave me more context for both. My feelings on Breath of the Wild, I think I like it the most out of the three of us, given that I also like open world games in general out of the three of us. Like, I like Far Cry. I'll eat some fucking open world slop. If it's presented well enough. Sorry about that. Tears of the Kingdom, like, Breath of the Wild, I think, has a lot of really strong aspects to it. I think. Now, I will also say I played both of these games via emulation. I will cop to that. And playing Breath of the Wild, being the only person on this podcast.
Nintendo, get him!
Being the only person who played Breath of the Wild on this podcast at 60 frames a second. No doubt played a role in helping that game a lot. Because, boy, walking into a village and having it just run fine is apparently not what that game is normally like. Which is...
Especially on Wii U.
Yeah, Lid played Breath of the Wild on their Wii U for the first time.
Oh, same. Yeah.
Because getting a Switch was hard in 2017. I like a lot of Breath of the Wild. I think like that opening section of being weak and scavenging for stuff and finding things feels really good. I love the Guardians. I think the combat is serviceable for what it is. I think there's a lot of like fun you can have in just goofing off, but I do have problems with the structure and base. And while I like it, would put it above certain 3D Zeldas, it's definitely on the lower end of the series for me. Tears of the Kingdom, while there are some problems that I still have with the game, is basically, much like Lid and Eli, a straight upgrade over Breath of the Wild for me. There is so much to do, there is so much to see, and all of the content feels more substantial in this game. There's so many different more kinds of things to do in this game and ways to interact that feel really good. I think the fact that this is a story where things happen in the present tense and not 100 years ago helps.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Yeah, that is true. But I'm mainly just comparing the four divine beasts and doing those versus like the main four dungeons of this game. Yeah. Overall, I personally would put Tears of the Kingdom in my top 5 Zeldas, despite the problems I have with it. Like, there are definitely things about it that still frustrate me, but like, this is a great open world Zelda game. This is a great, like, they finally, like, I am fully sold on open world Zelda being the future, even if I would like a more Ocarina of Time styled one again, but you know, it's fine.
I mean, I'd like that more, but I guess I'm not going to hope for something that's not going to happen, considering how well this game just sold.
Yeah, it's the best selling fucking game of all time, basically. So I want to start before we go any further with a quick bit of speculation. So even 2017, I remember among people who even really liked Breath of the Wild back then, that like the sense of like this is a really good Zelda game that I really enjoyed playing all the way through. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to it as much because I don't know if I want to do all that again. Do you think Tears of the Kingdom has better replay value than Breath of the Wild?
Well, I don't. I've replayed Breath of the Wild. I have not replayed Tears of the Kingdom, so
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I would need to give it like I can see myself replaying this game, but not for a couple years.
I feel like I might have done the least amount of stuff since there are big things on the map that are really cool that I just didn't do.
Hey,
So
let's
maybe,
talk.
but
Do we have an estimation of our total playtime for this game?
sure. I did like well over 100 hours. I did about 100 shrines. Got nearly double the Korok seeds that I did in Breath of the Wild. Did all the main dungeons and story quests. And trying to think if there's anything else. And I did a bunch of the side quests. I fought all the Koga battles, but there's still stuff. Like, I didn't go to Eventide, for example. I barely explored the Gerudo Desert. Yeah.
Yeah, I put in, according to my Switch profile, I put in about 125 hours.
And I think I only have, like, at most 60% of the depths mapped out.
Lid, what would you say your total playtime was?
Last I checked, it was a little less than this, and I haven't played too much since. I would guess I'm about 80 hours.
Okay. Which is still a lot for
Some
Zelda
of my
game.
playtime was, by the way, like wasted trying to get over something in the depths, which took me like an hour to realize I can't do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in the depths where it is just like, no, fuck you, go find a different entryway, which
Yeah.
But, I think we should start by talking about that intro to the game that we did 3 months ago. And what I am defining as the intro is everything you do in the game up until you get the glider. I feel like that's when, like, they like, you can beat... I've seen people beat the game without getting that, but that's when the game essentially goes, do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
So, for a quick rundown for people who don't remember or haven't played this game and are somehow watching this, the game opens with a mostly scripted section that you're still controlling your way through of Link and Zelda deep underground in Hyrule Castle. Basically the 2019 reveal trailer, if you remember that. Seeing, like, carvings of Rauru, the first king of Hyrule, fighting against some big evil demon king form of Ganon. They go down, they find Ganondorf's, like, mummified corpse under Hyrule Castle. He attacks them, destroys the Master Sword, and then causes Link and Zelda to fall into a deep, dark pit. Zelda ends up getting transported back in time, although you don't find that out for a couple hours. And you get teleported into your sky, also into the sky by Rauru. Also, Ganondorf takes Link's arm like it's fucking Princess Mononoke, because this is there is so much Ghibli in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
It really is.
It's
like,
crazy. So then
they're missing the only Ghibli that I've seen, and they could easily incorporate it since it's basically a character from prior games.
What is that?
There's no witch.
Wait,
you've only seen Howl's Moving Castle?
No, I've only seen Kiki's Delivery Service.
What a weird one.
I mean, Lid, this is just an aside. I hope you see more because
Yeah,
he's
no,
great.
he's great. I mean, anyway.
Eventually.
Anyway, so then the game essentially, the intro of the game is the Great Sky Island, which is like the Great Plateau from Breath of the Wild, but it's floating in the sky, and also you have to get all your powers in a linear order instead of just running around and doing them in the order you want.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this intro. Like the first
Okay,
5 hours
so
of this
yeah,
game are not great.
there are things I like about the Great Sky Island more. Like, I feel like it's definitely doing a very good job at introducing a lot of the new cool things in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, for example, this game has fucking caves. This game has caves. I cannot tell you how upsetting it was playing Breath of the Wild, and every time I would find a well, it would just be filled in with dirt. Or every time I would find a cave, like 10 feet into the cave, there would just be a fucking shrine or a chest, and it's like, what the fuck? This game having real caves helps it feel like classic Zelda so much. It's kind of embarrassing they made an open world Zelda that did not, where you never went underground.
Yeah, the caves are the best part, but I guess before we talk about that, should we like keep talking about the intro?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say I was not like sold on this game at all until basically until you get the glider. Like I did not like this
I
game.
think it's rough. You want to just talk about the four powers now? So,
and my problem is because I don't think that until you get all of the powers plus the glider and you get to work with all of them together, like they don't really feel great.
and
Once you have experience with them and once you can use them in conjunction, like the patented, I'm going to raise this thing up, put it back down, get on it, and use rewind is great every single time.
So, the four powers in this game are rewind, fuse, ascend, and ultra hand. And what they do is ascend allows you to clip through to teleport through ceilings. Fuse allows you to mend items to your arrows and swords and other weapons. Because somehow Ganondorf caused a curse on every single weapon that existed in this game in Breath of the Wild, except for bows and shields. And then uh what's
You
the
can't recall
rewind
it?
recall is essentially the fucking Prince of Persia Sands of Time power, where you get to rewind things back like 10 seconds, and that's very useful. Actually, more than that, more like 20. But and then Ultra Hand, which essentially allows you to grab things, move them around, and then also super glue them together. It's crazy, and you can do all sorts of things because there are all these different objects. They introduce you to the Zonai. Basically, had like kind of Magitech. It's like kind of ancient civilization super technology, but like it feels different than how that's normally presented. Where it's like
Zonai really wants to fuck themselves over because like they're clearly they were in a better place than everyone else. What the hell happened?
uh
Ganon summoned a bunch of monsters.
well, to be fair, when you first meet Zelda, there are only like two of them left. So
Yeah, that's what it seemed like to me. That
Yeah, no.
The flashback, it's like, yeah, me and my sister are the only one with Zonai left. Like, okay, what happened there? That's for a different story.
Well, Breath of the Wild was, 100-year time skip to way back when in the Sheikah civilization. This game was like whatever 1,000, 10,000 year time skip
10,000.
back to the foundation of Hyrule. Maybe the next game will just go back even
I thought it
further
was
and
like
we'll find out
only-
about the fucking alien space battle that the Zonai
I thought it
had.
was only like 400 years back.
No, I think it's 10,000.
Okay, if it was 10,000, then that's different. But
It is. I just want to say this right now. Please don't let this game take place on the same map. Please don't. You can't, like, people were skeptical, and I think they justified using the same map this time, given how much they add to it, but you can't do that shit again. Anyway, so you I like all 4 of the powers in this game more than Breath of the Wild's powers.
Absolutely.
In Breath of the Wild, Cryonosis was like a filler gimmick one, and bombs being a Sheikah power was dumb. This is
here's why I'm glad that bombs are like bomb flowers and you can store them again. Is that now bombs feel really powerful.
yes. I feel like there are no misses. I am curious because like it's gonna be weird playing a Zelda game, an open world Zelda game, if they don't have Ascend. If they're like, here's 4 new powers. Maybe we should get some sort of grappling hook to make up for the mobility loss. You can do
Ascend is brilliant. You know, they actually had it as like a like only when going in as like developers, and
yes,
you know, they wanted to just get out of it, and they realized, hey, we can just put this in as a mechanic, and it makes traversal. Like, you still will do a lot of climbing in this game, but having stuff like Ascend and the Zonai devices, it just makes it so much better.
Yeah.
You know, you were mentioning with caves earlier, like being disappointed with Breath of the Wild and its lack of caves, which I totally agree with. But also, like, the monster parts in Breath of the Wild, it's like,
oh yeah, no,
yeah, they were pretty limited in their usage, even though they were everywhere. But now you can always. It solved 2 issues. It solved that, and the fact that weapons would just break very easily.
yeah. Fuse helps. I still like feel kind of annoyed at how easily and how like weapon inventory works. But it is a very, like, okay, this is a pretty good half measure to fix. There's a lot of fun shit you can do with Fuse, even if you do kind of see the limits of it by the end of the playthrough. Yeah. I feel like with Cryonosis, yes, there were some intentional puzzles, or not Cryonosis, with Rewind, or whatever it's called. Recall. I feel like there were some intentional puzzles that were definitely pretty cool with it, but most of the time I just used it to cheese shit, just to be like, I don't feel like doing this shrine the way they want me to. I'm just gonna fucking fly over it all, cause fuck this shrine. And then,
So, I'm fine with doing that in the shrines. I think my issue with the dungeons, though, was I feel like they should have restricted your abilities.
yeah, that would
Like,
make more
'cause
sense.
Because, for instance, when you get auto build, which is great, I love auto build.
Yeah.
They turn it off in the shrines. You can't just use auto build to use the shrines. They should have just, I think, had some, explanation. Oh, some magic power is preventing you from activating your powers here, or maybe you get them back as you explore the dungeons.
But yeah,
That's actually still my biggest disappointment with the game. It is the dungeons,
Well,
even though I think they're much better than Breath of the Wild.
We'll get to them in a minute.
Sure.
Lid, do you have any big thoughts on the Great Sky Island or the Zonai powers overall?
They're I don't know. The Great Sky Island, I think it's neat. I think it's definitely like it's like definitely more visually distinct than anything in Breath of the Wild. It's nice for them to just open with, hey, there's there's something in this game that's not just a plain green field or snow or desert, I don't know. Some people didn't like it as a tutorial. I thought it was fine. And as far as the powers go, I think Recall is perhaps a bit underused, but nowhere near as badly as Cryonis in the first one. And Ultra Hand really just makes Magnesis feel like an unfinished mechanic.
Yeah. Ultra Hand.
There were comparisons ahead of the game, like to Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. And I was at a friend, and she made me play the beginning of that game as to torture me. And I played it before, but I didn't remember just how bad that game is. And
Well,
Do you know what I think is like the
Having,
most like
I'm saying like for Ultra Hand, like as comparison, having that be pretty instant. Like yeah, you still have
yeah,
to assemble it yourself, except when you get all the gold, you can save designs. But like that just it makes it so natural, even if it can be feel a little bit finicky at times, of like placing a wheel in a certain way that you want. It is still so much better than like other vehicle builder stuff because it happens right there in real time.
yeah, like those types of games, like having you build stuff in like a menu, like or like the gummy ship, or like stuff like the Lego racing games, which I think are both of those examples. I think are more simple than nuts and bolts, but it's still the same thing where it's like you're having to learn like a tool that is completely separate from the actual gameplay.
Yeah, whereas this, it's all one-to-one in a very impressive way.
Hey, you're gonna be like taking a Zonai wheel and moving that with Ultra Hand the same way that you're going to be moving a big spiked iron ball to hit it with lightning so that it hits a boss bokoblin.
yeah, no.
It's
Um,
great.
um, yeah, I will say I did definitely cheese stuff and do creative and like use auto build, which is the power you get later that lets you recall things you have previously built. I did play this a lot like Breath of the Wild, and then did do a lot of just running around, gliding, and fighting people with a sword and bow. But it's nice to have that option, and and even like I feel like I did stupid shit with these powers more than I did in Breath of the Wild, which is a good sign. So then, um, so then after that, so then after you get the powers, Raur's like, you need an extra heart to open this door, which is a little weird that like by design you cannot do a 3 heart run of this game intentionally without glitches. Um, uh, they also I feel they also do not give like Breath of the Wild made you go into cold areas which you took damage in, but it gave you let you get a like shirt that like made you resistant to cold beforehand. You find the resistant to snow pants at the end of the intro section. To
And by the way, thank you for telling me about those because I went back to go get them, and that made going through the Rito area without having to buy shit great.
yeah, no, that helps. I mean, you do need to buy shit eventually because it's like there are things in this game, cold areas, that you need level 2 cold protection for, but it definitely helps.
Or well, what I did was once I got to the temple, I just popped one of the like elixirs. Then afterward, I got the divine beast helm that gives you the other cold resistance.
Oh, I didn't even
So
find the cold resist divine being help. I
it's
don't.
actually that one's really good. You have to do a pretty cool side quest to get it, where you have to solve an interesting riddle, and that's actually, although you could also stumble into it, of course. Although I think it's less likely you do that. But what I do like about this game is a lot of these side quests will be really interesting riddles, and I kind of wish that there was something like that more in the main quest. 'Cause I don't feel like there really is, except for maybe one
Yeah,
thing. But
no, you're
with the,
right about that. But
yeah,
to finish out the intro, you open the door that requires a certain amount of hearts because by doing a forced shrine, and then I'll admit it, I died several times before I realized, oh, the game wants me to drop into the lake so I don't take fall damage. Okay. Because I did not realize that, so I fucking jumped off and fell down like maybe 3 or 4 times. Um, and the game starts you in the center of Hyrule Field and tells you to go to Lookout Landing, which is a town built just south of Hyrule Castle Town, from where the ruins of Hyrule Castle are in the original Breath of the Wild. You go there, you fight some enemies along the way, you see some stuff, and then you talk to Purah, you do some running around in Hyrule Castle back and forth, and then she lets you use the first tower, and then you get the glider, And that's basically the tutorial for the game. I will say I liked the Great Sky Island for what it was. The part where you have to go to Lookout Landing for the first time, and then it just felt like a lot of running back and forth busy work. But then,
Yeah, that section is interesting because I don't think anyone was really happy with it. Like it seems like the two main things I've seen people say about that are like they were either like frustrated because they couldn't figure out like because it's Zelda, it's this new open world thing people want to explore. People didn't realize that's what they were supposed to do, and that's how they get the glider and stuff. And then there's other people who thought that the game maybe wouldn't have the glider, and then ended up getting disappointed when it showed up.
I can't understand either of those people.
yeah, I get.
I mean,
I understand not liking the pacing of it because it's not well paced, even though Purah is like the most improved design from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
like
no.
she's so much better now.
Which is funny hearing you say that of all people, given the reaction.
She's a girl boss. The gays love her.
I do think that like both of those takes are like a little unreasonable.
I think the first take I can agree with.
Nintendo completely left it open
Well,
by designing this opening quest in this weird way.
I was gonna say, the game tricks you into thinking that you're done with the tutorial when you leave, because it's like, all right, I got all my powers, that's cool, and then it's like, oh wait, no, there's another 30 minutes left of this. Great. Like it's kind of
I genuinely think that this is maybe Skyward Sword's tutorial might be worse. I need to go back and play the HD version. Maybe I'll change my mind, but like this is pretty down there.
I think the Great Sky Island is more fun than the opening of Twilight Princess, but no section of the intro of Twilight Princess is as bad as running to get the glider.
I think it's longer in this, but I'm honestly like, I'm kind of okay with stopping talking about the tutorial.
Yeah, no, well, we're done. We've done it. Okay, so, I'm trying to think of like what's the most. I guess let's start.
I think the next place to go would be the depths because they tell you like, hey.
Well, actually, I think the best place to go now would be to talk about the new enemy roster. Because Breath of the Wild, one of I think the biggest complaints is that you get 20 to 30 hours in that game, and it's just like, oh cool, Lizalfos again, Moblins.
20 to 30. I think you're feeling that by like hour 10.
Yeah, true. It is. So, my take on after putting over 100 hours into Tears of the Kingdom is that the enemy roster is still a little lacking for the sequel, but we're at least now up to the standard that Breath of the Wild should have been with for enemy variety. And I like all of the new enemies and bosses they add in this game.
I still think for a game like, if you had this much in a 40-hour game, you'd be like, oh, there's so much great enemy variety here, but maybe toward the end of your playthrough, like, it kind of feels like, yeah, I have seen basically all these enemies. But in terms of the new ones that they added, I really like them. Gleeoks are terrifying.
Gleeoks and Gloom Hands are two of the coolest fucking things in this game.
Yeah.
I think the first time I saw a Gleeok was I went south from Lookout Landing to like explore stuff before the first dungeon. And I saw, oh, the Colosseum! I wonder what's in there. Is there still a Lionel? Opened the door, ran up, and saw a Thunder Gleeok and went, nope! And just ran back out.
Oh, so, pretty early on, I say I have maybe like...
I had 4 hearts.
At this point. Yeah. Pretty early on. I'm exploring the depths, like, I'm there for a while. And eventually I find one of the, like, power things that you can use to ascend out of the depths. And it takes me to the bridge in the southeast where there's a fire Gleeok right there.
Oh, you got back right up under fucking Lake Hylia? Oh, that's great.
Exactly.
Thankfully, they let you press the B button so you could go back down.
Well, actually, I went into the whirlpool there and found a shrine.
Oh,
And,
nice.
which was part of one of the shrine crystal quests, which I really like those in this game.
Also, man, we don't need to go over every enemy. But I want to quickly talk about Big Boss Bokoblins because they're so fucking funny. Lid, do you know what they did in this Zelda game? They put the Halo Grunt Elite enemy dynamic in there, where you have just a bunch of little shitty Bokoblin assholes scattered around this big fat chubby idiot. I love Boss Bokoblins so much. They're so great and charming. Gloom hands are also just like the first time you see one and you just go, what the fuck is that? And the reveal of like, oh, when you kill one of them, a phantom Ganon spawns is like...
Yeah, it wasn't until the Great Deck tree when I finally figured out how to get into Korok Forest. Cool that it's like you can't get in from above, you can't get in forward, you have to find your way in through the depths. But like when you finally get there and you go inside the Deku Tree, which is really cool, bringing it back to Ocarina, it's like, oh no, you have to fight one of these, and it's in a hard arena to fight them because there's already Gloom here. Like then it occurred to me, oh, these things are killable. It genuinely never occurred to me that you could kill these things.
Yeah, no, the best way to do that is to try and get as much distance as possible and just spam bomb arrows at the eyes.
Yeah, did either of you beat them without bombs?
I don't think so. I don't think I've ever
so,
just
no.
used melee. I think it's possible,
Yeah.
but it's just like you get grabbed too easily.
Exactly.
I think now's a good time to talk about the depths, because after the tutorial, they're basically like, hey, go investigate the big fucking hole that appeared in the middle of the ground. And you jump into it, and then it turns out there's a giant underground cavern.
Yeah, Andy, you called it, by the way, because that was actually one of your predictions, was that there would be a...
Yeah, I was like, there's gonna be some... They're tricking you. They're setting up all this sky stuff, but they're not talking about the... I thought because we only saw the caves in the trailers, and I thought that's what, like, all there was there's gonna be cool stuff in the caves. I didn't think, oh, there's a giant underground shit here, and you have to light individual areas that align with where the shrines are in the overworld and the sky. It's real fucking crazy.
It took me too long to realize that, by the way.
Yeah, no, it took me a while too.
Yeah, I didn't know until I saw someone say it online.
And
it's like, oh yeah.
And I think like, because going into the depths is crazy, and I think me and Lid talked about this a little bit earlier. It's kind of just like a normal Link to the Past approach to the Dark World. Like, it's kind of crazy that Tears of the Kingdom does this on top of having the Sky Islands. I will say, though...
It's the kind of the first time they've done it in a 3D Zelda.
Yeah, because Ocarina of Time, I like what they do in the future, but it's like... It's not the Dark World.
It is not.
I will also...
the depths are so cool because you lose all your, well, essentially, like, depth perception. Especially early on when you get a lot of, like, bright bloom seeds later. To the point where you get, like, 400 and it's like, I don't even need them.
Yeah, and I didn't explore that much depths until I had a bunch of ripe bloom seeds, but yeah.
Well, when you go early like I did, and you find an obsidian frox when you have 4 hearts, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And you can't see anything either. But, yeah, like, I would just be, like, I'm gliding, and I don't know what, like, it's complete darkness around me, and I'm just gliding. I don't know when I'm going to fall. I don't know how to get back up. I don't know if there's something down here. That was so cool. And that's some of the best stuff in this game.
I will say, just given how, like, the variety of both the Sky Islands and the individual Sky Islands and the depths, I think they're both really cool. But they do both kind of feel like, on their own, half of an overworld. Because the depths only really have normal depths and lava biome, and there's no other parts of the Sky Island that I remember that are like, here's a snowy Sky Island that much. And it's definitely cool, but if, like, I think if you just had like one of them, each of them would be less impressive. But the fact that you have all three, just like really balances out and sells like okay, this is why it was totally
You
right
know,
to
I
reuse
think
this map.
maybe besides the main island of Skyward Sword, I kind of think that there might be more going on in the sky here than in
Yeah,
Skyward Sword by a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, no,
100%.
yeah. There's barely fucking anything to do in Skyward Sword. Like you could well. You could make the argument that not counting the big islands with dungeons on them, there's more. Well, I would say at the average Sky Island has as much to do on it as the average Wind Waker island. In that they're both like smallish areas, but you can get like a shrine or cool thing, and there's cool robot stuff up there, and it's fine. But none of them are like Great Sky Island, in that they're like here's a level up here outside of exactly the water temple, but those are like dungeons, so they're
You know,
different.
I'll ask now that we're talking about the Sky Islands. Did you find any of the other Sky Islands that have the low gravity?
Yes,
No,
I did find
besides
I
the
did
Yellow
find
Kingdom
one
and
of them.
West.
I think it was one of the big like rotating domes that had that, if I remember correctly. That was pretty cool. I think I found a couple of them. I liked the low gravity gimmick in this game, even if the
Yeah,
water.
that was cool.
Um,
And another thing about the Sky Islands, um, so you know those shrines where they've got the green crystal, it points a laser to it, bring it back here.
yeah,
Um, did either of you find one of those in the sky where it was like the crystal is over on another sky island? It's behind a couple layers of like branches you have to cut down, and behind those branches is both the crystal and enough Zonai devices to make a flying machine to get back
Yep.
to the
yes,
shrine.
I did find those.
Yes.
I found 3 virtually identical islands like that.
Yeah, I feel like there are like here's a bunch of the same islands with like a fuse construct on it, and just that's just it. Go get that. Like it is copy and pasted, but I think
Oh,
the
by the way, speaking of the Flux Construct 1, fine, easy. Flux Construct 2, okay, a bit more challenging, but fair. Flux Construct 3, fuck you. I'm not doing that.
yeah, they're assholes.
Fucking teleporting the goddamn weak spot is awful.
It's
It's just like, no, I'm not trying this.
I will say when you get on top of them when they're in their like square like brick form, that feels real good. Um so
I like the first two of them, yeah.
yeah, I like the so one of the things that I think Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom most improves upon Breath of the Wild in is that like side quests are a lot better in that like the normal regular side quests are about the same, but they add in like more like these are the side quests that are important and actually affect things in the overworld and or get you better rewards, and they highlight those very well, and I really appreciate a lot of those. Like go the
I
one
loved the Gazette. I loved getting the band back together. I
I
loved Hateno Village.
I,
Yeah.
I like the one where you have to find the 4 like statues under the Great Plateau. The all of the Yiga fights are great. Like there's so much.
The Yiga clan are so much improved in this game.
So I'm gonna say this. I don't know if you guys will agree. There are definitely Zelda games with better stories and better casts. But I think Tears of the Kingdom is the most I have ever liked Hyrule as a setting with a bunch of characters in it of any Zelda game that features Hyrule. So I like it more than Link to the Past, Zelda 1 and 2, Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Link Between Worlds. You know, the Zelda games that are in normal ass Hyrule. I like how many like one-off characters there are. There's a lot. This game has a lot more weirdos in it than Breath of the Wild, which I really appreciate.
Oh yeah. I like how, and it's like Colton, Kilton, whatever their names are. I like how you meet the first one in the last game, and you're like, what a freak.
And then you
this
meet his
game's like,
brother. And
can you help me with my fucking freak brother?
can you help me with my with? Can you help my brother deal with his persona issues? Sorry. Well, what's the equivalent of a fursona for a scaly? Because that's
I don't know.
he wants to. Oh man, it's great. And then like, I really liked all of the points in this game where it's like, okay, us and the squad, we're going to attack this band of monsters. You want to come along? Like, yeah, one of the guys only had a broom and they didn't do much, but the feeling of that, like the fact that it's like, okay, the people of Hyrule are not just like NPCs, they're at least trying to affect the plot rather than just standing here and saying a basic dialogue. It's like, this feels
Like, in
nice.
Breath of the Wild, like, I get it. It's been 100 years. You have the fucking Guardians all about, which are terrifying. But the fact is, it just feels like everything's in complete stasis, and like that's just not very interesting. Whereas in Tears of the Kingdom, they are trying to rebuild Hyrule. They have actual goals that they want to accomplish, not all of which are even related to rebuilding Hyrule. Like it's Hateno Village. It's fine in Breath of the Wild as this like little quaint pastoral place, but now it's this weird fashion hub that it's at a crossroads. It's fun.
Yeah, no, that's they all of the towns in this are great. I the main like Hyrule Castle town equivalent, I forget its name. That's one of my favorite hub areas in video games. I really like improving that a little
Lookout
bit.
Landing, you mean?
Yeah, I really like Lookout Landing. I think it's got a lot of personality. It's really nice constantly coming back there. It's really nice how many of the NPCs just fucking go back there. Um,
Yeah, I had no idea, by the way, that Hestu was there after you find him until you go to Korok Forest. He's just there for a while.
yeah,
I
it's
was like, where the fuck is he? Oh, he's there.
yeah, no. By the way, I really appreciate that the game is like puts Hestu on the obvious main quest path. Cause I missed Hestu the first time I went to Kakariko Village in Breath of the Wild, and did not find him until like after I had done at least the first Divine Beast, and had finished all.
Yeah, he just kind of goes wherever in Breath of the Wild.
Although we forgive him because Hestu is like one of the best guys they've ever made. He's great.
I love the dance. How he has little backup dancers when he upgrades you in this.
Legend.
Speaking of Korok Forest, Eli, did you notice that in Breath of the Wild, Hestu's like, oh man, I need to go back to Korok Forest, but I don't know the way back. In this game, the Korok and all the Koroks left. In this game, the Koroks are gone. They do not mention that. I wonder why they don't mention going back to Korok Forest. And then you get there and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, it is. I think that's one of the coolest moments in the game is when you do finally get there.
Yeah.
After being repelled from the sky and land, when you find your way through the depths and you just see, oh, this place is fucked up.
Okay.
That's something that this game did a lot better, is that it presents that Ganondorf is an actual threat.
Yes.
Compared to Calamity Ganon. Like, the Guardians are threats, but, like, nothing else.
You
feels
feel
a
like
threat.
you're actively saving Hyrule in this game a lot more than it did in Breath of the Wild.
Which is what, like, Zelda games have done well, is that they've said that, here's the scenario, things are fucked up, can you help us?
Let's talk about the main quest and story now. Let's just run down the dungeons and the like stuff you have to do leading up in the order. So let's start with
let's say which did we do? Like, what was everyone's order?
I did it the order the game told me to, which is Rito, Goron, Sora, Gerudo.
I did not do it in that order at all. That's interesting. And why did you think that Goron I didn't even feel like I was telling you to do that 1 second. I understand Rito was telling you to do Rito.
Well, because
but
when you get to an NPC, there's new NPCs every time you do a dungeon back at Looking Out Landing, hinting like, maybe you should go this way.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
if you talk to Pura, that's the order that she'll give you each time.
So my thing was, one, I didn't know until you told me that the cold leggings were back in the Great Skyline, and I didn't even want to touch Rito until I found some like cold resistance. But so my order was I wanted to do the same thing that I did in Breath of the Wild, basically do that order, and just like see if it does it better for Tears of the Kingdom. So I went Zora, Rito, Goron, Gerudo.
Okay. If I had to rank the dungeons in this game overall before we sort of go over them individually, I would say my ranking from worst to best is Hyrule Castle. Get into that in a minute. Water Temple, maybe? Spirit Temple. Wind Temple, Fire Temple. No, not Spirit Temple. What's so it's what's the Depths Temple called?
Spirit Temple.
Yeah, it is.
Spirit
Okay,
Temple.
okay. Spirit Temple, Wind Temple, Fire Temple, and then Lightning Temple. I forgot because the Spirit Temple's the Desert Temple in Ocarina of Time. That's why I
Yeah,
got.
I gotcha. And I don't think the Spirit Temple in this game is very memorable. So
There's things about it I like, but yeah, it does have problems. How would you guys rank them?
and that's tricky because it's like, do I count the stuff? If I count the overall scenarios, my opinion like might be different. Because
Yeah.
if I count like just to the point where it says like Water Temple, that's not very good. Like the actual Water Temple. But I like the Zora investigation, and I like the like Wellspring Island leading up to it. Like that's really
Okay.
cool. It just once you actually get to the Water Temple, it's a bit more flat. Um, I will say I think basically all four of the main ones that have analogs to the Divine Beast are better than every Divine Beast.
Yes,
Like I think
absolutely.
the weakest here. So I don't know. I guess it would be if we don't count the scenarios as a whole and we just count the point where there are like 4 or 5 locks you have to unlock on the map and then a boss, then it would be from least to best, water, wind, fire, lightning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think the lead up to
Yeah.
some of them is like some of the best parts.
Yeah, that is true. I would definitely agree with that. Hyrule Castle is
Like
kind
I think that the Rito in this game.
I don't even have anything to say about Hyrule Castle as how like little of an impression left on it.
I'll talk about it, but let's I think just start going in more in depth. So the Rito, the sense you get to the village, because so much of the surrounding area is like frozen over, and you get to the village and they had to make the children work because there's no food because it's so cold out. That got to me a little bit. That's man, I'm so fucking glad I did the Rito first as well, because man, they give you the best power in that game right off the back.
He don't miss.
Not only that, but also just like, man, if I played more of that game without the ability to fucking glide faster horizontally, I would be pissed.
Oh yeah, that traverse, like the traversal ability, and then Tulin headshotting enemies from a mile away is amazing.
Yeah, Tolan
Um,
rules.
I think that Sidon is a beautiful shark man, and his ability is not useful at all.
Well, let's
outside of his dungeon.
yeah, because I like the like platforming on Viking ship tarps lead up, and I like how the ice gimmicks in the Fire Temple a lot. I think the Rito's a solid start. I will say I was tricked a little bit. Or not tricked, but given a false impression because they expect you to do the Rito first, and because I did I was like, wait a minute. Is the boss of the Rito Temple gonna be what all of the bosses are like in this game? Because what the boss of the Rito Temple felt like to me was, it's like, oh, it's like you turned the lead up of assaulting the divine beast, which there isn't quite an equivalent for in this game. But you took that section of the game and made it a boss fight. But then like the other bosses were just normal Zelda bosses, so I'm like, okay, thank God. They're just starting out with a weird gimmick one. My thoughts on the dungeons overall in this game is that, like, I like most of them. I like how they impact the story leading up. I would say Spirit Temple, both lead up and dungeon itself, is my favorite, because the Spirit Temple is the only dungeon where it felt like I was like doing, like, it felt the most like an Ocarina of Time dungeon, where it's like they start you out in kind of an intro area, they work you on that, and then they put you in a big, tall central room with a bunch of rooms branching out from that you have to do puzzles in to make progress in the central room. And I went, oh my god, they remembered how to make a normal fucking dungeon. It's like the Water Temple. Thank God.
I wouldn't say that.
It's not the same. Like, it's definitely a lot more babyfied, but it's going for a similar idea, which is a more impressive thing than anything the Divine Beasts were.
I really like the dungeons in the same as spectacle, but I still don't feel. I think like they're really cool. I enjoy them, but I don't think that they really ask you to do much in the way of puzzle solving. And I think having all of your abilities plus knowing where every significant point is, and they're all the same kind of point, like at each time, like at all times, is just not the way I would have hoped that they would have done it.
I really like the Fire Temple lead up.
And that's probably like where I'm least confident in this game. Is just dungeons are a classic Zelda dungeon is something that I feel like no other series has done, and it's very unique, and I feel like that is the one thing that I still miss, that I think they kind of threw out and have improved. Like, these feel less like an evolution of classic Zelda dungeons and more just what the Divine Beast.
Yeah, these are pretty good action RPG dungeons. Even I will say, yes, the Fire Temple and the Lightning Temple feel close enough to me that I'm like, these are really good. Also, I cheesed the Fire Temple so much. There's so much like you can just exploit, and that felt great. One of the criticisms that I heard about the dungeons that I do get is so Tears of the Kingdom isn't as focused on the whole beat the game in any order you want in 5 minutes, even in as Breath of the Wild was, but it does let you do a bunch of stuff out of order and lets you skip. It just presents things in a more main questy order, where it's like, yeah, there are more steps to the main quest, which I appreciate, but it's not in the same way. But there's one thing in this game that you have to do, which is even if you find the dungeons early, you still have to get the sage abilities to be able to enter the dungeons, because you can get to the Water Temple without ever going to Zora's Domain, and do all the puzzles, but because you don't have Sidon there with you, you cannot actively solve any of them. And I think that's cool. And I don't mind that. I have
no issue with that.
I don't have but I do think the sense of like the Spirit Temple, if you know how to get there early, you can just go there before any of the other dungeons. And I do feel like it would be nice if there were like, okay, here are dungeons out in the overworld that are about as long as the main story ones, but are completely optional. And I hope we get something like that in the next.
By the way, I found the Spirit Temple first, then I found Dragon Head Island, and then I did the ring quest.
Yeah, no, you could totally just do the Spirit Temple first, because
I
I
didn't
glowed
do
into
it
that.
first, but I found it in the wrong order, which was
I
funny.
did you find the door with the hearts and open that? Because I did find that early and opened it. Because I
I
just
opened it, but it was really foggy, and I couldn't see my way
I
down.
tiptoed. Well, see, if you do the shrine that's on that island, a bunch of the fog disappears.
Not enough for me, but
Enough
anyway.
for in the lower areas, if you just go over the weeds and then it clears out, and then you can just like open the door and glide. And it's crazy that the game lets you do that. And I do kind of, if they're gonna like double down on the sense of you can do anything in any order you want, it would be cool if they kind of applied that to a dungeon to a certain extent. But I appreciate this game having meaning, like the Gorons having crack rock addiction, the Zora
The
being
Gorons are so great. I
the
love, I love that they're insane, and that Univo's popping up like Vince McMahon because he's got a big fucking.
and he's
ego
here
in
to
his
make money. He's
mask.
doing business. He's
Speaking of the Fire Temple, by the way, this is just an aside. You know, the director of this in Breath of the Wild is Hidemaru Fujibayashi, who directed both Oracle games and the Minish Cap, and also Skyward Sword, and all these games have minecarts in them.
yeah, no, my Minish Cap also has a fire temple with minecarts in it.
Guess
Uh,
what Oracle of Ages has?
oh god, he just loves that idea. I bet if the fire dungeon in Skyward Sword also has minecarts, it's been too long.
No, it's this thing in the desert area that's like you can
Oh,
ride a
okay.
minecart roller
Yeah, the
coaster,
fire
but
temple is rolling on boulders
yeah,
and
yeah.
using the
But
beetle.
anyway, just kind of funny.
Yeah,
But
no, it is funny to see him have a pattern.
I think they took a big swing with the Gibdo redesign, but it worked for me.
Yeah, no,
Making
evil
them
bug
insane, like,
mummies is a really
yeah.
inspired design and playing with a bunch of fun tropes.
My only issue with is like they shouldn't be also weak to. They can maybe also be weak to fire, but definitely shouldn't also be weak to ice. I kind of feel like that's too makes them too weak.
Oh, one other thing I want to say about the sages,
But other than that, they're really cool.
is that like the sages themselves. Well, okay. So Zelda, especially pre like Breath of the Wild, is like not an RPG. Zelda 1, well Zelda 2 is arguably an RPG, but like Link to the Past through Link Between Worlds are action adventure games without real RPG mechanics. I would argue Breath of the Wild is like basically an action RPG because it's your combat is about you having a sword with big numbers and armor that also has a big defense number, and enemies also like it's kind of more into RPG systems. So Breath of the Wild being like, yes, you're playing an RPG now. Link should obviously accrue a party over the course of the main quest. That feels great. I really appreciate that. Like having
My only issue with that is I agree with the four main sages, but like Monero is like, who let you on the team?
it is the game.
She's like the Amaranth of like in Final Fantasy IX.
So like I like the Spirit Temple. I think it's pretty cool. I appreciate like one that you can do it early. Two, that it's just in the depths. That it's about exploring the depths, which in a way is cool. Where it's like find these things. I mean, they do tell you, but you can find them early.
Well, it's so cool that the fire temple's in the depths. Actually,
Yes.
that's really cool.
Yeah, stumbling upon this ancient abandoned Goron city was like, oh, I'm getting the Zelda feels here. But like but then you unlock a giant mech when you complete the four like individual shrines, which I think those are some of the best shrines in the game. Um, and then you get a giant robot, and it's one of the worst giant robots in all of video games.
And by the time you get the giant robot, it's like, yeah, you can keep doing side quests if you still have them, but it's like, okay, it's time to fight Ganondorf.
Yeah,
But
and
I like all the main scenarios though. I feel like it's something
yeah,
that Ganondorf has created these actual problems for Hyrule. That
Yes.
doesn't. What was even the problem with the flying divine beast for the Rito? Like, was there any actual problem there?
Maybe they'll
In
do
Breath of the
something
Wild?
someday. That was, I think, the It's so funny in Breath of the Wild how unfinished the Rito were. They clearly were like, ran out of time. Do you get no... which you can tell, because in Breath of the Wild, all three of the like present day people that you go assault the divine beasts with are your sages in this game, except for the Rito. They're like, no, his kid's more important than him, and they're right. Um,
You know who's the goat in this game? You know who's the like undisputed besides Tulin?
who?
Misko.
Yeah.
Misko was fucking everywhere.
So
I respect Misko so much.
so let's talk about that a little bit. And I definitely talked about this with Lid before the spoiler cast. Man, it is so nice. Tears of the Kingdom, I have a problem with upgrading armor, but the way you get armor in this game is so much better than Breath of the Wild. Because Breath of the Wild, it's just like, you find it in a cave, I guess. Eli, how long did it take you to notice that the caves that have armor at the beginning of them have like ornate entrances?
Now.
Yeah.
But here's one of my favorite examples, and this is one that was like not marked for me on a map. I just happened to find it myself. There's a cave where you go through it. There's some likes, and you can find you beat this like more interesting kind of like maybe it's like a thunder like something whatever, and you get a chest and it has this weapon in it. It's like, okay, cool. Maybe you even notice there's a bubble frog in the cave, but if you really notice, up like top, there's this rock wall that you can hit with a bomb arrow. You can go through that, and then you get something else. But if you notice, there's another rock thing, and if you hit that, then you find it was like a piece of the rubber set.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it was a few rock walls like this. But like the fact that you have to notice that is really cool if you want to find these things.
I think I only found the rubber chest plate.
I found
because if you get the lightning helm, you don't need any of the other rubber armor.
Oh no, that's true. But I didn't get the lightning helm until like pretty late into the game. So I found the whole rubber set.
I will say, you talk about how we talked a little earlier about how monster parts are more useful. Later on in this game, I realized, upgrading armor still fucking sucks. It's terrible. And
yeah.
Lid. Okay.
Hello.
Just making sure you're here. Like, upgrading armor sucks because so much of it is just running around for specific monster parts. And it kind of made me realize...
Like the fireproof lizards, for instance.
Yeah, and it kind of made me realize a problem that I had with this game. In that, like, part of it was, oh man, it just, this series just doesn't feel right without the like, Ocarina of Time focus on, like, big 90-minute plus long chunks of content that are satisfying and all that. But then I realized, like, I miss that, but I don't need that because of how much Tears of the Kingdom offers. You know what the real problem that I realized is that, like... So I was comparing this game and Breath of the Wild to Mario Odyssey, because that's, like, the other super huge selling, big, important single-player Switch game. And one thing that I appreciate that makes Mario Odyssey feel more satisfying to explore is that, like, everything you do in Mario Odyssey is about finding either coins or moons. You have a very simple upgrade progress, and everything you do in the game expands on that. So it's weird that there are, like, 15 different, like, currencies in Breath of the Wild or in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild for upgrading Link. Like, you get Sage's Stones, you got you've got the Rauru things. Like, there's so many different things. And I think this would be, you could probably cut 30 hours out of your playthrough of just running around looking for stuff to upgrade. And I think that's kind of the weakest aspect of this open world Zelda, is that, like,
I really do like the bonuses that you get, though.
yeah, there are, like, satisfying stuff. And I will
And
say,
I honestly would be kind of okay if maybe they... I would be okay with, like, tuning down a couple of the bonuses. Like, maybe you're not completely fire resistant now, but it's easier to get to that. I will say...
no, I like the bonuses. Honestly, my solution would be, like...
Hey, did you both get the...
The what?
I was gonna say, did you all get the complete glide set?
Yes! Where you don't take fall damage. That's great.
Which is, first of all, it's really satisfying and tricky to get all three, because you have to play a minigame, and the minigame itself is not the hardest thing, but actually getting way up in the sky to get to these specific sky islands can be challenging.
I usually just rocketed up from the tower, went to the first island I saw, and used Tulin, and that usually works for most islands in this game, but not all of them.
It did not work for me for some of these. I had to use for a couple of them, I'm talking about the ones where you have to...
Yeah, the
do,
big
the
tall
diving
tube
challenge.
towers.
Yeah. I had to use some, like, the auto build, like, super springs to get up, or some, like, other Zonai construct.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's really satisfying to get them. And then when you fully upgrade it and you're fully impact proof, going from a high sky island to a hole in the ground to hitting the depths
Yeah.
is so fun.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. I will say, I think I'm not a big fan of turning off the upgrades, because I think that's one of the more interesting things. I kind of wish they would expand the armor upgrade.
No, not
idea.
turning off, but like maybe
Weakening?
a couple of them I'd be like okay with tuning down the effect a little bit to make it
I'd rather, my solution for this is that, like, you have rupees for, like, paying for armor and, like, interacting with NPCs and shops and stuff. But then, like, you take Korok seeds, like, all of them, and make them, like, here's the one currency that you get for upgrading Link at, like, and getting for Koroks, and then you use that for everything. I think that would make things feel better. Lid mentioned off stream that, like, part of the problem with that is that they don't want you to just do one type of content. But I'm sorry. They made Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom let you beat this game and, like, go to the final boss immediately. I see no problem with letting them play this game any way you want. Something else that I realized...
I just think that, like, the upgrade threshold could be easier,
yeah,
but I don't know if
there are a lot of ways they could change it. I
do love my backpack Korok friends. I love them.
I love them. It's nice to get 2 Korok seeds. About, like, 40 hours into this game, I'm just like, I'm not going that way, so I'm not taking you there, buddy. Good luck.
I did almost none of those Koroks.
I did a bunch of them.
Even 2 seeds is not worth how much time it takes, in my opinion.
So did neither of you take a Korok to see his friend on Eventide Island?
I didn't go to Eventide Island in this game.
So the way I got there was by flying a Korok with my the eagle Zonai thing. I flew one who went to see his friend. It's like, how the fuck did you get over there? And it's actually a really cool place because you know that there's something there in the depths, but to even get there, you have to do this whole quest where you have to fight this all these monsters who are there, and also this pirate ship that eventually pulls into the cove.
Yeah, and you also have to beat up the pirate ship that's originally at Lurelin or whatever.
Oh no, you can do that before Lurelin.
Oh, okay, you can. But yeah, I feel like the game is kind of pushing you to go to... Because there are a lot of things where it's like, yeah, well, you can do anything in order... But you should take care of this first. And I appreciate that.
I did Lurelin a bit later, and I saved them, but I didn't rebuild that town.
I rebuilt the town. It's not as bad as rebuilding Akala, because the game tricks you into thinking, oh, I just need wood. No, you need to bring haul lumber, like cut down trees from down into that village, which is kind of annoying.
It's cool that you can get your glider customized in the
Yeah,
dye shop.
I went for the one I got from the newspaper. That's the one I used for most of the game.
I did the Korok one because it's cute.
That's a pretty good one.
I got one that looks like the mirror of Twilight from my Midna amiibo.
I don't have any amiibo, so
And even
My
if you did,
amiibo,
you couldn't use them because you're a cheater.
I could use cheat codes to
my
use them.
amiibos are elsewhere, so I was not able to use them. Although I do have a Link's Awakening.
By the way,
amiibo.
the links so you get costumes in this game that are based on the outfits from previous Zelda games. The one that's here lets you wear Link's Awakening, the remake Link's Awakening model is super
I never
amazing.
found that one. Wow.
I found that one. I will say I got to a cave and it was like, hey, you can get a super cool sword behind you. Here, you need the full Great Deities armor. And it's like, I don't know where the fuck to get that. I guess I'll come back later, and I never did.
Oh wow, no, those. So, did you find the quest to get you to the Great Deity
I
pieces?
don't know if I did. I found
All
a
right,
bunch.
because you know that the where you find that there are these like two assholes who are outside of it.
Oh, that's those guys.
Yeah, so if you talk to them, they'll sell you information that'll put you on that quest, and then you can find the three pieces otherwise too.
Okay.
But when you find them, you get the Great Deity sword,
I
which I displayed in my house.
yeah, because you don't want it to
Um,
break.
No, that's the thing. It's like my favorite, like the one of my favorite things and least favorite things in this game is like some of the coolest stuff was like finding, oh, this is a reference to like here's the shield from the Wind Waker, and my problem with that is, okay, but it's just a reference to a thing that I like even more, and I do like this game, but it's like I like finding these. They're
Eli,
cool.
Eli,
Yeah.
did you find the lobster shirt?
No, I did not find the lobster.
It's in a chest that you get in Lurlin Village Bay. Uh,
Interesting. I found like Ravio's thing, which
I think I found that.
yeah, it helps with horizontal climbing, which is interesting. I found Zant's helm, which makes you unfreezable.
You know what's something that's really lame that there's no armor set does? So I think stamina in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is an alright system for climbing, gliding, swimming, charge attacks, all that's fine. It's really lame there's no armor set that's like does not use stamina when running across Hyrule. Because
It's funny that Elden Ring solved that issue.
Oh, did it? Yeah, that's another thing that Elden Ring.
Yeah, when
apparently...
you're not in combat in Elden Ring, you don't consume anything.
Oh, by the way, going back to the dungeons for a second, I want to complain about Hyrule Castle in this game. So I am on one of the opinions that no, actually, guys, Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild is one of the better dungeons in the series and has a bunch of cool shit in it. Even if Calamity Ganon fucking sucks. I don't like what they did with it in this game, where it's like, go find Zelda's specific thing, but you also have to glide to a specific entrance into the castle that's not easy to see from the outside. So you fall a bunch, and then you have to go back to Lookout Landing, take the tower up, and then glide back to Hyrule Castle. That sucked. And you also have to go around, because so many of the insides of the castle are, like, crumbled away and ruined.
I mean, I definitely agree it's not as good, but I was less attached to Hyrule Castle and Breath of the Wild than you are, so I like the fight with all the Phantom Ganons more than
that is good.
Ganon.
That's a great fight. That's a great fight.
Yeah.
Where it's like five and man.
I like how the game's like, huh, you thought that was Zelda? It was me, Ganondorf. I bet you didn't expect that
Yeah, no.
after all this time. It is great how, like, part of Ganondorf's plan is disguising himself as Zelda and just being a shit to everyone.
Yeah. Let's talk about the flashbacks right now. My takeaway is that I like all of the stuff that happens in the flashbacks more than I do the Breath of the Wild flashbacks, even if I do like stuff in the Breath of the Wild flashback. And it feels like this informs more stuff in the story, but it doesn't completely, like, tell you what's going on in every way. But I do feel like there are, like, some missing details, and it feels like like, a little too much time passes in between them that we're not, like, seeing. Even though there are, like, a lot of them.
I do like. First of all, they're much better to access than any of the ones
Yes.
in Breath of the Wild by a significant margin. But the fact is, because this game is so non-linear, and because you'll most likely be finding them out of order,
Yes.
like they don't have much of an impact. And also, when you go back and watch them in order anyway, they're fine. I think Ganondorf is really well animated, like with his face.
That fucking
But-
face he makes after he kills Raru's wife is just the best.
That's. I wish there were more of him in the game, frankly.
I had a little problems, but we'll save that for a little bit when we talk about the final boss. I like a lot of the flashbacks. I like what Ganondorf, like his banter with Rauru, and I like seeing Rauru in this game and that stuff. But it does feel like it's a little weird. It's also weird that, like, I feel like the Gerudo Sage in, like, from 10,000 years ago should have had, like, more than the other sages, given that, like, yeah, she was with Ganondorf and on his side, and it's weird just that, like, yeah, him turning into a demon's kind of a dick move.
So, like, the game kind of has the opposite problem. So, in Breath of the Wild, the sages who, like, from like, the champions are the ones that people care about, with maybe, like, feel like Sidon being the exception. Like, people like him more than they do the Zora Sage from Breath of the Wild, or champion. But here, it's the ones in the present are the ones people care about, and no one really.
Well,
Do they even have names? The ones in the past?
no. Well, because
Exactly,
they're
like-
basically stand-ins for the champions. I will
Yeah.
say, that is one of the things that I liked about this game's plot. Because even though I don't think it's necessarily the most interesting or even, like, well-told Zelda story, I like its main focus on. Breath of the Wild was so much about, like, closing and guys from 10,000 years ago, or from 100 years ago, and how, like, it's been frozen in time. I like that, like, the sages, like, help you in this game, and I like that, like, there's a sense that, like, Hyrule is fighting for itself, and, like, this is about this generation sort of proving itself in a way. That feels
No,
like
I like everything that happens in the present here. Just I don't really care about the flashbacks.
I guess
too
what I'm
much.
saying is that, like, I think this feels like a satisfying sequel to Breath of the Wild, if nothing else. It's also very funny, because I think me and Lid talked about this. There's no way they planned any of this shit with the Zonai or anything when they were making Breath of the Wild. Like, none
No.
whatsoever.
So two characters who are also improved: Princess Zelda
Yes.
and Master Koga.
By the
Like,
way, I would like to say I'm very smart. I turned this game's dialogue to Japanese as soon as I turned it on.
of course,
Dub Zelda's not good, people. She's not.
she's bad. And you know what the best part about Zelda in this game is?
What?
Her plot involves her not talking anymore.
I'm just gonna say it. Pulling the Master Sword out of Dragon Zelda's skull is the coolest fucking thing in a Zelda game.
It's pretty cool.
Like, it's...
So I really like. I was trying to get like one of the tablets that has the writing on it for the guy in Kakariko Village. I was like flying over that and like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, no!
And it was Zelda.
She has... I found... I saved the Great Deku Tree first, and then that gives you a marker in the sky of, like...
No, I found the
Master
Great Deku
Sword's
Tree
moving
first.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saved the Great Deku Tree first as well, but I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like a sword in a bubble is what I assumed it was.
Yeah, no. You find fucking... It's Zelda.
Because I didn't do all the tiers at that point.
I didn't
I'd only
either,
done, like,
so...
half of them.
I think Lid did the tiers before the Great Deku Tree, right?
Yeah. The Great Deku Tree was like the last thing I did.
And it's very funny. I think the game is like, what the fuck? You haven't done that yet? Go do that.
Well, I think one of the strengths of this game, though, is you can either find a thing, or you can find a map or some other thing, or maybe someone telling you,
Yes.
that will point you toward a thing.
Yes.
And you can do either of those.
Finding old maps in this game feels so satisfying because it's like, oh, nice. I'm actually like, it feels like you can like, it feels like you're collecting an arsenal much better in this game, and I feel like the one thing I would maybe change about this formula and add onto it is I would be like, maybe like having it be like Twilight Princess, where you learn a bunch of moves over the optional moves over the course of the game, would arguably fit better in an open world Zelda than it would in something like this, or in something like Twilight Princess. I kind of hope they go with that, where it's like, it's not like a thing that locks progress. It's just an ability or a tool that is useful to have. Because that's basically what the sages kind of are. It's like, they're not like, none of them are like, you can't do anything without the sages, but they just make other stuff easier.
Do either of you feel like the Yiga clan in this game, just like they feel like Team Rocket?
Yes!
To me?
They are fucking idiot. And I felt like the Yiga clan in Breath of the Wild was kind of wasted potential. In that, like... So, like, there's this question of, like, oh, man, these guys are siding with Calamity Ganon and the monsters over over the rest of the world. Why are they doing that? And then you meet Kolga in Breath of the Wild, and he's just a dumbass, and it's like, why are you doing that? In this game, having Ganondorf be an actual villain makes Kolga's antics feel a lot more appropriate.
This is the thing. Does he know that Ganondorf is an actual person, though? I'm
Yes,
not entirely sure.
because by the end of it, it's like, yeah, we found the Demon King. We're serving him now.
Okay,
like,
I want to make sure.
He does know about it. He's just bumbling.
I love how Koga's first fight with you is the car that Homer designed.
Yes.
And then his second fight, actually, like, I died several times to that. That was hard.
Yeah,
This is
no.
the point of the game where one dungeon. But I liked all 4 fights, especially since I did his last fight before the Spirit Temple, in which case you don't fight with, like, robot on robot, which is basically the same, thing as the Spirit Temple. You knock things into him, and it's really funny. Koga rules. I love how the thing, like the Akala laboratory, is taken over by the Yiga clan, and you have to beat them up.
Yeah, no. There are 2 other locations where you can go to find the full set.
Oh yeah,
the old man's house or the King of Hyrule's house on the Great Plateau, and then the third one's just a cave, which is kind of lame, but whatever. And yeah, that's really good. Do we have anything else, Lid, Eli? Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or are we good to just go into the end of this game?
I like the boss fights.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, no. Like, both the new overworld bosses, like the Gleeok's great. I like Phantom Ganon a lot.
Queen Gibdo, like, feels like a classic 3D Zelda boss.
Yeah, no, and it's cool that you fight her before going into the dungeon, and then it's about you go in the dungeon to finish her off. That's cool.
I wish that there were more NPCs in the underground and sky.
Yeah.
That's in the underground. It's really the Yiga, which kind of, I'm kind of fine with it being the Yiga there.
I love reading their journal entries. They felt very space piratey.
Like at the very beginning of the game, you have like a couple steward constructs in the sky, and you have like a couple encounters with like the Hyrule like investigation team or whatever they're called in the underground. But like that's it.
Yeah, that's why I say earlier on in the spoiler cast that like the sky and the depths both feel like half of an overworld rather than like a full second and third overworld each, respectively. Because it's like there aren't really any towns up there. There's not as much variety, but they're more just like little places you pop in and out of in between sort of doing main overworld exploration.
Yeah, I'm fine with the depth. They're not really being more NPCs, but I can see that about the sky. Feeling like it's maybe a bit bereft there.
Like, did either of
Because
you find the Sky Island that's like a big Zonite forge? Like, it has like the smokestacks and stuff, and like you go to the shrine by like going down through a bunch of lasers.
Yes, that was very cool.
It just seems weird that there's not something there going like a someone to say like what's the deal with this building?
Yeah.
What's it doing?
Well, because they can't get up there. They can't fucking use Zonai.
well, no, but I feel like with like the Stewart constructs, like the one where it's like the diving challenge,
Yeah.
and then they're like, "Wow, you were really great at that." I feel like there just could have been more
Yeah.
stuff like that.
That's fair. One final thing I
Oh,
want to
you know
say:
what we didn't talk about?
the shrines
Some of the
themselves.
Yeah, the best shrines in the game are the replacement for the worst shrines in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, the ones that basically follow under Eventide Isle rules in this game are so much better than
Honestly, even better than Eventide Island.
Yeah, no. Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but they are all very good, and it's good
Like,
that there's
not each one is specifically better, but as a set for me, because they all are about.
I like that Eventide
Like, to the
Isle is
specific job.
like a bunch of them kind of stitched together, so you can sort of carry an inventory over and increasingly get that. Whereas each one kind of makes them feel worse, but it is cool every time I get in one. You know what we can also, while I think the shrines are overall much more satisfying puzzles with fun stuff to do, you know what's one thing we can complain about with the shrines?
What?
Why you lay out the tutorial shrines the way they did, where it's just like most of them are in the overworld. Oh, we put one in Akala, and it's just like another fucking tutorial.
I got so mad about the Sneak Strike one. I hated that one. That was my least favorite in the game.
And they put it so late. It's like, why'd they do that?
Exactly. But you know what's cool about the shrines? I would find these zonary devices, and I wouldn't really get them. Like, it's like, okay, maybe I kind of get it, or I don't even get it at all, about how to use these zonai devices. And you get one that feels like a tutorial for it, but also a challenge. Not one that I find, like, there weren't shrines with one or two exceptions. One of which was embarrassing. But, like, I didn't find these shrines hard or puzzling. But I found them, like, neat little challenges. And I didn't... Other than some of, like, the shrine crystals or, like, shrine quests, I didn't skip any shrines, like, once I found one. I just did it. I did have trouble with one where it was assembling a bunch of blocks into a cube. That took me way too long. I felt like DSP. But other than that, I didn't have trouble.
Yeah, I can't. I've never felt like DSP playing a video game before. I don't know what that's like.
I don't know. It was only that one where it's just like a child should be able to assemble these blocks into a cube, but I found that difficult. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think the puzzle solving and variety is a lot better than Breath of the Wild, and I hope that carries forward.
Yeah. There was a fun one where you got to like put this almost like Daruma doll type zonai that goes upright, and it would fling you. Like, that was really
that
fun.
one's great. Yeah.
Or where you get to do stuff like the hover stones is really fun.
Yeah. I'm ready to talk about the final boss if you guys are. So I said this earlier, but like my main takeaway from beating Breath of the Wild is that like Nintendo should feel embarrassed about Calamity Ganon, because every part of Breath of the Wild is just like, I don't appreciate the lead up to Ganondorf fight as much as I do Hyrule Castle, but like
Which
Man,
I actually disagree with. I like that way more than Hyrule
I
Castle.
love Hyrule. I disagree. But like the Ganondorf, like the fight with the NPCs with the army
Because
felt fine.
can I explain why? I
Sure.
guess because you can't just tank things. You have to either run fast or play well in the lead up to Ganondorf. Because there's
Eli,
not a
did you know
four.
you can just run past that fucking Lionel?
Of course, I didn't fucking fight the Lionel. I'm not crazy.
Yeah,
But like
I did it first, and then I'm like, I'm gonna load a save. I'm using way too many items fighting
yeah,
this fucking
but
thing.
yeah, the point is like no, because they take Gloom Hearts. Like you can recover those, but you have to have like brought stuff ahead of time. You might not have enough of it, so it's like you can't just like you can go through Hyrule Castle and make mistakes and just heal yourself, ad infinitum, as long as you have stuff. But I thought this was a better challenge in that way, and it's also like you're going lower and lower instead of going to the top of Hyrule Castle. I like this more personally.
I don't know. I
But I
like.
think there's no dispute that as a challenge, that the actual fight is much better,
Well,
including the horde beforehand.
it's funny you say that. Lid, would you like to dispute Eli on this? Because I know you had some problems with the breath, the final boss of Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it had a lot of interesting ideas, but I feel like fighting a bunch of regular enemies before the final boss is not cool or fun. Um,
Oh, I like that. I don't know.
I feel like the whole gimmick with and obviously like it's like even though fighting Ganondorf as like a human with a sword is more interesting than fighting Calamity Ganon, it still just does the thing where you have to do the flurry rush in order to
See,
beat him.
Lid, I like that because the reason why you have to do the flurry rush in this game is because Ganondorf can counter your parries with his
Yeah,
own
and
parries.
I think that's dumb.
I think
I
it's
don't I didn't like the how the fucking boss fights in Metroid Dread require you to parry either.
that you're dumb. Dread has the best boss
Yeah,
fights in gaming. Sorry, I like a good parry battle.
I think we should just kick Lid from the rest of this spoiler
No,
cast.
let's be
I'm
nice.
kidding. I'm kidding.
But yeah,
Uh,
no, I like Ganondorf. I will say, Lid, I'm a little more
I like that he take. I like that he just takes hearts from you. You can't
Yes,
recover.
yes, that's cool. I will say,
Like something I think is interesting about the Zelda games, and I feel like as much like I have some problems with Ocarina of Time, but I feel like it's probably the game where they handled this the best. Where like as the Zelda games got bigger, it sort of like split into like there's the main quest and then there's the side quests, and the side quests become more and more of their own thing. It's less of just like, oh, these are some optional objectives to get heart pieces, like in Link to the Past and the Game Boy games and stuff. It becomes more like, no, this is just like a world. It has some stuff for you to do. You can go fishing, you can do the masks, you can do all this stuff, and as a result, in a way, like beating the game almost feels secondary. It feels like something you do once on the side in between just doing stuff in the world. And I feel like we've gotten to the point where so much of these games, like they're so huge and so much of it is just that part, that beating them feels really meaningless.
well, would you prefer if
I
it
agree
did
with you to
the
a point.
the Fallout
In
New?
that like I agree with Lid to a point in that I don't think it feels as satisfying contextually to beat Ganondorf in this game compared to some other games.
Yeah,
But
because
if we're just talking about the fight in isolation, I like it a
I
lot.
like the fight. I will say, I'm not a big fan of Ganondorf's characterization during the fight because, like, It's clear Ganondorf on some level at least respected Rauru a bunch, and it's like a worthy adversary. So even though he did beat you, like presumably like a month before this game, he fought you in Tears of the Kingdom. It is weird that he just does not respect you at all until
No,
he
as a
beat your
fight, I
ass.
really like it. But
Yes.
as characterization of Ganondorf, I don't like this as much as Ocarina, Twilight Princess,
Yeah,
or Wind
because what
Waker.
I was expecting from watching the trailers, what I thought they were gonna do with Ganondorf in this game is that like he knows that he is like this. Basically, I thought they were gonna turn him into Castlevania Dracula, where like he's super familiar that like oh it's another Link and Zelda that I have to fight again, and like I'm gonna kick your asses this time. And but him just being sort of like this being presumably
Well,
the
he
first
had
time.
like I think structurally, and this maybe goes to what Lid was saying. Like he has to be relatively
Yeah, because
like
he's
unobtrusive to you. He can be obtrusive to other things in the world, which I think they do well. But like you don't see much of Ganondorf in this game, which is something that is just when you make this game so non-linear, it's something that is going to inherently happen. I
yeah.
think.
Um, I don't know. I feel like that is
I like that he
true.
changes weapons and then you have to change tactics, and it's fun.
Yeah. Um, the dragon phase I think works as like a here's a cool spectacle thing for the final boss, but it's not as mechanically interesting. Um,
No, I mean it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be here's the like normal phase, here's the challenging phase, and then here's the victory lap
it at
phase.
least feels a lot better than fucking riding around on some shitty horse you collected 40 hours ago to shoot Calamity
No,
Ganon.
that was terrible for me. I like this because it was, you're just going through the sky and attacking a dragon, which is something you've been doing like before. It's really fun.
You
Um,
know, can I point
yeah,
out the fact that the entire middle of the map isn't like extremely dangerous like it was in Breath of the Wild makes horses so much more worthwhile in this one.
That's fair. Yeah, I do feel like there.
Oh,
I still
I
didn't.
actually disagree.
I
I
didn't
use
use them
horses.
much, but I felt like yeah, it's more. Especially once I got the golden horse, it's like yeah, I could see myself using horses more.
No, even when I got the golden horse, it's like I only used it like the cart. I didn't feel a need because I would be going through the depths into the sky like so often, and I would be using Tulin's ability to like propel myself. That I and also Zonai devices. I I didn't use horses as nearly as much as I did in Breath of the Wild.
They are still finicky bitches, and that's kind
Well,
of annoying.
the trick is if you just get on like a road, the horse will just go. Like you can put the controller down.
That is true, and that is nice, but it's like
That's true, but I don't find that engaging. I guess.
I feel like because the way I play Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is that I warp around and do a bunch of side content until I feel like I've done enough so that I can do the next dungeon. So I'm not really like going. So by the point that like running around on roads would be useful enough for me for horses, I feel like I've already got enough war points that I can mostly get around Hyrule, even if I didn't fully finish the map until after I did the Spirit Temple.
I will say having the horse in Elden Ring kind of makes horses in other video games feel
Yeah, I've
lacking
heard
in
that the
some
Elden Ring
ways.
horse is like the goat of horses.
It kind of
It
is.
kind of literally is if you look at it.
One more thing about the final boss fight is I had to fight every instinct in my body, and eventually I acquiesced and I saved Zelda.
Yeah, it is a little weird that Link just gets his arm back.
Yeah,
That feels a little unearned, but whatever.
Yeah, I honestly thought that like as far as the story goes, I thought this ending was corny.
Yeah, it's a little too neat into one bow. I feel like they could have handled it maybe a little better. Um, but I
I
don't
got
know. I do also. I think one thing we can all agree on going forward, because is that like I hope, because obviously the next Zelda game is not going to be on or compatible with the Switch unless if Nintendo's fucking insane.
here's my hope. It doesn't this is maybe a long shot. They should set it in a different region. And I don't mean a different Hyrule. I mean a place that's not Hyrule.
I feel like, yeah, you could
They've
do
done
that.
that before, and they should do it again.
I feel like if they're gonna do that though, it would require them. They would only do that if if it's the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Link and Zelda leaving and going to another place, which I wouldn't have a problem with. I feel like if we're doing a new status quo, they're just gonna set it in Hyrule again because that's what they always do.
I would rather them keep the same Link and Zelda and have to go to a different place than
That's
Like,
fair.
I would really like them to set the game in another place, but
apparently-
isn't Majora's Mask the only time they've done that in a
No.
3D game?
Well,
in a 3D game.
yes,
yeah.
in a 3D. They've done it in most of the 2D ones, but not 3D. You're right. I will say, some of the Zora are apparently in this game. If you talk to them, and they're from places, a colony they have like outside of Hyrule. So that might be where the DLC is, because obviously this is getting DLC, especially if the Switch 2 is still in a full year out. So you might be going there. I don't know. What I don't need that, but I feel like I would be fine if we got something. I just want something like Wind Waker or Skyward Sword, where like technically you're in Hyrule, but everything's weird and different. That's what I want the next Zelda game to be. I want the next Zelda to be weird and different, because Tears of the Kingdom, I think
mean, that was the initial marketing campaign for this game, is that it would be the Majora's Mask, Breath of the Wild's Ocarina of Time, and I think it's an improvement on Breath of the Wild.
No, you know what this game actually is?
That.
Because it's not that.
What?
You know what this game actually is?
What?
It's the adult Link to Breath of the Wild's young Link from Ocarina of Time.
I can see that. It's also maybe like the third strike to like vanilla Street Fighter 3 in terms of just like who's gonna want to go back to the last thing
like
now?
I feel like we can't just have it be the next Zelda game be you go to the Goron, Zora, Gerudo, Rito again, and in a relatively normal Hyrule that's more in its prime like Ocarina or Twilight Princess. I feel like whatever comes next has to be, I hope, is weird and different and makes a bunch of changes, not only to the world and characters, but also to
Okay, you know what I actually
the
hope
main
they
story.
do next?
What?
A 2D Zelda.
Yes, that would be nice. That would be very nice.
A new, not a remake, 2D Zelda.
Yeah, no. I also wouldn't complain if, like, next was like, oh, here's a Minish Cap remake or an Oracle remake. I'd be like, whatever. But I would like
an Oracle remake would be nice because those games I love but have some mechanical and audio issues.
Yeah.
But, yeah. How would you guys rank this, like, in terms of the series for you?
I said earlier, this is in my top 5. It's really, really good, but I would never call it my favorite game in the series, having finished it.
I'd probably call it, like, my 8th or so favorite Zelda.
Yeah, I'd probably put it somewhere in like the upper end of the middle.
Yeah, that's fair. I like it a little more than you guys, but, you know, I think we're all in agreement that, like, it's very, very good, but not the best. It's also going to be very funny if, like, Eli, you already liked Pikmin 4 more than this game. It's going to be so much funny if fucking Mario Wonder ends up being better this game, or if Baldur's Gate 3 ends up taking its Game of the Year spot at the Game Awards.
I would not be shocked.
Like, Baldur's Gate 3 is not a game that I'm going to pick up, but yeah, I can see that. It is, yeah, definitely possible that this is my 3rd favorite Nintendo game of the year, which is saying something for my 2nd favorite open world game ever made.
The Switch era is just firing on all fucking cylinders. There was a bit of a weak spot from, like, 2018 to, like, early 2021 where it's like there was a sense of like, I don't know if we're gonna have as good of a year as the launch year of the Switch, but 2022 and 2023 have just been fucking banger years.
I don't know. 2019 was weird
2019
because
was
there were
pretty...
a lot of games, but most of them were just kind of okay.
Yeah, the thing is, I've never played a Luigi's Mansion game, so I can't. So my brain, I'm still have to be like, oh yeah, Luigi's Mansion 3 is one of the best Switch games, but I don't probably one of the best Switch games.
I have not played that yet.
Yeah, it seems like it's very good. But other than that, yeah, it did feel like it slowed down, but no, and I cannot
But
wait.
no, like Pikmin 4 is definitely my game of the year so far. So I'd be
Yeah,
interested.
I'm interested to see because I have a lot of things
Which
that I
is
want to play.
crazy that Nintendo released Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4, and they're both great, and then everybody went two switches in there in the middle.
Yep.
It's that game is so funny. Anyway, I think this is a good enough place to end things off. We talked a lot about this game. I'll hopefully be back before the end of the year to talk about the new Mario because it's the new Mario. It's the first full new Mario game since Mario Odyssey and the first proper new 2D Mario game in 11 fucking years, which is crazy. But yeah, until next time. Bye bye.
Bye.
See ya.